Odysseus,
Telemachus,
Penelope,
Antinous, Odysseus,
Athena,
Telemachus,
He's got the look. He's got the power.
Penelope.
Menelaus,
and Helen of Troy.
Odyssey.
After the Iliad,
Hidden no horse.
won the war.
Yeah, I'm serious.
This is the most pretentious movie I've seen all year. And I can't wait to not see this movie again.
But someone who doesn't have the power is Sir Christopher Nolan, who gave this guy a big check for $250 million to go and do a modern day version of Homer's The Odyssey. When I think of Odyssey, I think of these guys.
You're a native New Yorker.
When I think of The Odyssey, I've just found out there's a 1968 mini-series based on that same book by Homer.
La jeunesse a privilège de trancher sans savoir, de décréter sans vouloir juger ou de juger sans chercher à savoir parce qu'elle croit qu'elle sait.
There are a number of scenes in this movie that are enragingly dark. So nice to go into another movie that I was really looking forward to and actually come out with a huge smile on my face. I loved it.
Now this is me, folks, going into Cineworld today. And while I was in the back row, oogling and ogling all the beautiful cleavages and bums of people walking in, and that's just the men, I sat down and wondered 3 hours later, why did I watch this foreskin of a movie? And why do I refer to it by that descriptor? Because quite simply, by the time you pull everything back, what you're left with is a big bag of pretentious nothing.
Man only interested in the climax. He must be a real hit with the ladies. Never had any complaints. Okay then.
But then again, when I think about the Odyssey, my favorite version is this one right here, starring Armand Assante, Greta Scacchi. I watched yesterday, and yes, I will be referring to this quite a bit in my review of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, because honestly, Armand Assante and Greta Scacchi are outstanding leads in this TV series, made in 1997, produced by Francis Ford Coppola and Nicholas Meyer. So you got the big budget, and you got the big stars, and you've got, honestly, better performances than whatever $250 million diatribe this version from Christopher Nolan turned out to be. By the way, it just occurred to me that if you had to make another version starring teenagers, you could have got Teen Agent himself, Richard Grieco, you know, Booker from 21 Jump Street, to have a role as maybe Odysseus or Telemachus, because his surname sounds Greek. Okay, enough of that. Let's get on with today's video, please.
Hey, no problem.
And that's a perfect segue, folks, into the review of Christopher Nolan's version of The Odyssey. And you know the story already. Odysseus, played by a very miscast Matt Damon, and yes, I'll get into that too, returning home from the wars in Troy, only to find himself being usurped by many obstacles along the way, namely the feminist bullshit writing in this film. And boy, we'll come back to that in a minute. Did you hear the one about the Irishman, black man, and indie man who walked into a bar? You haven't? Well, you could probably base that on this joke of a film by Christopher Nolan.
Concerns three men, an Englishman, a Welshman, and a Pakistani.
Because we have Himesh Patel and another black dude who, in one scene which they've pillaged, tell the villager that they are the Greek soldiers of Ithaca. I mean, Himesh Patel is about as Greek as I am, Sheriff J.W. Pepper from Live and Let Die. Now, yesterday afternoon, folks, I spent a good 3 hours of my life watching this movie for the very first time. I don't know why I never saw it back in the day, but hey, it's never too late to catch up. This film does an amazing job of breaking down the story by Homer, because if you don't watch this before you watch the overinflated, overblown, very meandering, which is probably the perfect M word I can give for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, then you're going to be in for a rough time. You'll be looking at the camera, you'll be looking at your friend next to you, or the woman next to you with the big boobies, scratching your head and asking yourself, what on earth is going on? Why is Matt Damon's Odysseus sat on a deserted island with Charlize Theron as Calypso. In this movie, you only see Calypso in the second part of the film as played by Vanessa Williams, because I guess Vanessa Williams is half black and half white. When you think of Calypso music, you think of them people in Trinidad getting on the limbo tree and doing the limbo man. That's my personal thoughts about how I would approach casting someone like Vanessa Williams. And actually, I got to say, give some credit to Miss Williams. She plays the part of Calypso very well. She actually gives her some emotion and she's quite sympathetic. Even though, again, I would say Calypso knowingly holds Odysseus hostage because she wants the love of a mortal man to make her feel more womanly, I guess. But this film is very bizarre from the start because you had that convoluted 10-minute opening. I wouldn't even say Travis Scott is the worst of it. Yes, black people existed in Greek times, mainly as traders and maybe occasionally as a noble man or a noble woman. But that aside, this film has many, many problems, especially with the casting. Tom Holland, honestly, I love the guy as Peter Parker. He's always going to be Spider-Man to me. But as Telemachus, he just does not cut the mustard. He's not Alan Stenson from the 1997 original film of its time, because the guy that played him had a lot more conviction. He looked great.
But you did not help me.
You are your father's son. Remember, the gods will not do for man what man must do for himself.
The Christopher Nolan version of the Odyssey is taken from a new translation by Emily Wilson, and it fucking shows. Because in this version, events get scattered all over the place, and you're never quite sure what's going on until much later on in the plot. And trust me, the first hour of this film is pretty fast moving, but then my God, it's like you're sinking in quicksand in the middle of that film. By the last 45 minutes, I was looking at my phone thinking, when the f is this film going to end? Because I want to go home to see my mum and make us afternoon tea. It was really that boring. And I got to say, people who have seen this film, they have sung its praises. They talk about how beautifully photographed the movie is, how it looks spectacular. Yeah, if you were a lucky person who went to a 70mm IMAX theater in America and you watched this film, of course you're going to have that perception. But if, like me, you went to the poor man's IMAX, which is the super screen at Cineworld, well, the sound and the picture quality will be a bit of a downgrade. But when it comes to the audio, I didn't have any problems understanding what the performers were saying. I had a problem with the performers on the screen, who I was just seeing as a film star. Matt Damon is just Jason Bourne in Greek times. Penelope, played by Anne Hathaway, just looks old and haggard. And when you see her on the red carpet, all glammed up and pregnant and big mommy milk is all the way out there, why couldn't we have got that version instead? I don't understand it. And now we get to the dual role of Lupita Nyong'o Bongo, who plays not just the most beautiful woman in all of Greece that sunk 1,000 ships, Helena Troy, but her twin sister Clytemnestra. And she, of course, the former, is married to John Bernthal's Menelaus, who really is quite miscast in the role. Yes, he's enjoying himself. He's bald on top with a beard on the bottom. Of course, every time I see John now, I think of him as the Disney version of the Punisher. He's all goofy and bearded and Ozempic. We love him for that. Now, some of the aspects of this film really had me seething, namely Christopher Nolan's approach to violence. He's actually afraid of bloodletting. There's lots of quick edits. There's lots of people's throats getting slashed here and there and everywhere. When you compare it to 2008's The Dark Knight, which I thought was more violent and actually very tonally appropriate for a film called The Dark Knight, that works so much better. But then when it comes to supernatural horror, my God, Nolan is an absolute fail. He's no Ken Russell from The Devils. And what I'm paying close attention to is all this hype and hoobalala regarding Samantha Morton's bewitching portrayal of Cersei, because why bring up Ken Russell's The Devils? You know about the infamous British horror movie with Oliver Reed and Vanessa Redgrave. There's a scene involving nuns who get rather frisky with a statue of Jesus Christ. And it's quite the spectacle to behold, I tell you that much. I was expecting something like that with the character of Cersei, how she turned men into pigs. But of course, there is an underlying message about that, which is men are pigs, they rape and they pillage, look at their disgusting appetites. She actually says that in the film, which I could not believe. So no wonder Samantha Morton praised Christopher Nolan's script. It's because it was written for her to project feministic bullshit like that.
In history, women have been vilified, whether you're a midwife, whether you're, a herbalist, whether you're a healer, whether you're just in tune with the moon. Like, women have just been vilified throughout history, and I think that was my take on it. But also, Chris's interpretation of the original text and then kind of condensing it into this essential oil of Cersei was phenomenal. And that I just worked from the text.
And I find it quite ironic that she would talk that way to Odysseus, as played by Matt Damon, because shortly before he enters her household, his team of soldiers have also entered looking for food to eat, and they're very polite and they're very courteous towards Cersei. But what does she do in return? She turns them into pigs. I thought she was probably going to seduce them or something, but nope. We don't get that. And the problem with Cersei as well, Christopher Nolan doesn't know how to write women in his films. She actually explains a bit too much what her nefarious details are going to be. I would say the best horrific scene in this film when you had those 10-foot high soldiers in their silver armor totally wrecking Matt Damon and his crew. That was great. Why didn't we have more of that, I wonder? Now, this film was shot in Greece, so if you're Greek and you're watching this review, I do feel sorry for you because, again, what an absolute insult to your country. Yikes. The Cyclops, who, again, is the son of Poseidon, is the worst thing I've ever seen on the big screen. I take the Cyclops on this film, I think they spent a lot more time and effort with making this thing really menacing for a small screen production. Again, the only thing that took me out of this film altogether was the aspect ratio of 133.1. But apart from that, it's a great movie. This actually treats the source material with so much respect. You dare to bargain, Odysseus? What do you offer in return?
No, my brothers have the big caves.
Where are your parents?
Our mother is a sea nymph. Our father is the mighty god Poseidon.
Poseidon.
I am the youngest Polyphemus. What did you dream?
But the Cyclops in this version is just a meandering, weird-looking thing that I don't know who thought that was a great idea to have this monster on the screen. It might be more terrifying on the IMAX, but honestly, it's very lackluster as a creation. Again, if you think of the cave troll from Fellowship of the Ring, that was way more terrifying. And if I hear one more person comparing Christopher Nolan's Odyssey to the Peter Jackson LOTR trilogy from 2001 to 2003, I will personally find them and beat them to death with my big fat willy. Ellen Page as Simone, that's quite the casting revelatory choice of the ages, isn't it? Because when we last saw Ellen Page in a Christopher Nolan film, she was in Inception. But guess what? She's become a different person and gender these days. And
what would be your weird Olympic sport that you would get gold in?
I think I'm good at recommending books.
But her portrayal in this film is laughably bad. It's beyond reproach. How Matt Damon keeps a straight face in front of her while delivering really cringe dialogue is beyond me and beyond the scope of this review.
Like, I'm good. Like, if someone's kind of giving me the vibe, or this is what I feel, like, I really love to read, and I do think that is one thing. I'm like, there's a lot I'm not good at. I'm good at recommending books.
Now, when it comes to the ultimate Penelope, well, there is her from Thunderbirds.
That bougainvillea is absolutely parched, and someone should do something about that hideous hammock.
Greta Scacchi in the 1997 film is miles ahead of what Miss Anne Hathaway is given to do on her piece of paper. Again, her Penelope is a bit of a screeching feminist harpy, but with Scacchi's version, it's a little bit more restrained. And again, The chemistry between her and her on-screen husband, Armand Asante, and her son Telemachus is fantastic. One thing that highlighted this film so brilliantly is that when Telemachus grows a beard, that's the time for his assumed widowed mum, Penelope, to find a suitor to replace her assumed dead husband, Odysseus. And I really like the way that she plays off her son. She berates him slightly, but in this film, Anne Hathaway really does bitch talk Tom Holland to the point where you're thinking, what kind of mother acts like that to her son? It's so bizarre, it really is. So, funny enough, this film from Christopher Nolan, amidst the furious winds in the bag, if you know the part I'm talking about, in the 97 version, Odysseus is on his ship with his crew, but they're all wondering, what the hell is that bag? What hidden treasures is he not telling us about? And of course, once they untie the bag, don't open that bag of winds. If this film makes a record-breaking colossal amount of millions over the weekend, which I think it will, by the end of next weekend, the film is going to take a downward spiral in terms of people going back for repeat viewings. Because I'll say this much, this film you can't repeat watch again. You just cannot do it. Secondly, I think apathy will kick in pretty quickly, because when I left my Cineworld today, everybody in the audience felt like me. They couldn't wait to get away. Nobody was going, oh my God, that was the best thing ever. It was just like, what the fuck did I just watch? And yeah, some of the casting is problematic, but you don't see the people like Lupita Nyong'o and Athena, played by Zendaya, for very long on the screen. They're there, but when they're there, you're like, really? That's the best you could do? Again, it's pattern recognition. If this film wins Oscars next year, you know what the reason is to send out your message. And of course, the person to deliver that message is your very own Greek Hermes himself, the messenger of the gods. That's right, Christopher Nolan and his insufferable wife Emma. Oh God. But other than that, folks, I do not recommend you go and watch the Odyssey at the cinema. Save yourself 20 or 30 bucks, stay at home, watch this film instead, or better yet, track down the 1968 version, which I want to watch now, which is an 8-part miniseries, and get stuck into that as well. But on that one, folks, if I were you and if you were me, I will catch you catching me for the return of the next video.
In tune with the moon, like women have just been vilified throughout history, and I think that that was my take on it.
Don't let your dreams be dreams. Dream of me. I'll make your dreams come true. Everything's possible with me.
But of course, folks, this is all so interesting because Arrow have announced Troy from Wolfgang Peterson in glorious 4K, which means you get to see Diane Kruger and her booby glory. I can hardly wait.